go ahead and just get started. This is- I'm not the important part of the presentation, so the introduction won't mean as much as the presenters. So I see we have a few people coming in, but for those that weren't here during the first few Food is Medicine Summits, I'm Terrence Hunter, the Mississippi Delta Fellow with Delta Diverse Consortium. Um, we've been doing this summit to try to highlight this food as medicine model that's been spreading throughout the state and other parts of the country to highlight different ways to serve communities and combat chronic diseases. Today, we're going to be having a participant-led panel that's going to be presenting to you all, and they're going to share their insight on what they've been doing in their respective organizations, and you'll also get a chance to ask them questions as we get close to the end, and you'll be able to take that information to your respective communities. Before we get started, I just want to ask everyone that's not speaking at the moment to just put yourselves on mute. Also, I want to let everyone know that we will be recording this session. So by registering and signing into the summit, well, I would just say that you agree to be recorded. And if you don't want to be recorded, that's okay. If you need to bow out of this summit, we will record and we'll provide it to you all at a later date. So with that being said, I would just like to just introduce all of the panelists. First, we're going to be hearing from Dorothy Grady Scarborough and Sonny Baker with Mississippi Food Farm to School Network. And they're going to be talking about their farmers market. No, they're going to be talking about their home gardening program. So they're going to go first. Next, we're going to hear from Dr. Elizabeth Miles with Alcorn State University's, I forget what's the name of it.
It's the Mississippi Small Farm and Agribusiness Center.
Absolutely, and Dr. Miles is going to talk about the farmers market, and she's going to emphasize the Buy Fresh and Buy Local initiative. And also, we're going to be hearing from Julian Miller last, who I see is coming in now, and he's going to focus on the evolution of food systems in the Delta and the Greater Jackson, Mississippi area. And it's also going to talk about a pilot program that he's working on that's going to help with infant mortality and help combat that and help pregnant mothers. So without wasting any more time, I will hand it over to Sonny Baker and Miss Grady Scarborough. And I think you all have share screen capability, so you all can start whenever you need to.
Dorothy, do you want to? Dorothy and I didn't talk about who was going to go first. Do you?
You can go ahead.
Okay. I'll just do an introduction and then Dorothy will tell you about like the exciting things. So, my name is Sonny Baker. This is Dorothy Grady Scarborough, and we serve as the co-directors for the Mississippi Farm to School Network. The Mississippi Farm to School Network came to be because Dorothy has been doing school gardens in Mississippi, as we like to say, since before it was cool and before it even was called Farm to School. She's been doing school gardens since the 90s here, and she can talk to you a little bit more about the evolution of that program and why she felt called to do that. I moved to Mississippi in 2012 to Oxford, Mississippi for a boy. And I do school food reform work, and so was looking to continue that while I was in my new hometown, and I started doing a farm to school project with the Oxford School District. And Dorothy and I met at a national farm to cafeteria we got to talking at a national farm to cafeteria conference about what it would look like to have farm to school happening everywhere in Mississippi. It makes so much sense to be buying locally grown foods for school cafeterias in Mississippi because we have the best growing land in the country, the Mississippi Delta, and farmers, brilliant, wise farmers who have been doing this work on this land for a long time. And then also to cultivate school gardens for children so that they can make that connection about where food comes from. So we started doing this together in a network situation. So we're helping connect farmers to schools, schools to one another, teachers to one another. And that has just grown and grown and grown. This to connect this to food as medicine, we know that healthy food and food that's really good for you is kind of a hard sell to children who are inundated with food that's like an instant gratification, sugar, sweet, processed foods. And that's the easy sell. The harder sell is fresh fruits and vegetables, which may be good for you, but they also taste really good. I imagine many of you have had a homegrown tomato before in Mississippi. It's a clear difference from something you're eating in the middle of winter from Kroger. So we focus on the taste of food a lot, and we talk about it from a taste perspective. But this food is medicine. Food that's harvested loses half its nutrients within the first 24 hours of being picked. And so when food has to travel on a truck from California to Mississippi, we are losing so much. We're losing so many nutrients. We're losing that money that could stay within our state and be supporting our local growers. And then kids, as Dorothy will go on to tell you, will eat anything that they grow, just about anything that they grow. So what a great way to bring curriculum in schools out into a garden and, be learning outside, but also be getting your palate adjusted to fresh fruits and vegetables in a really fun and unique way. The last thing I'll mention before I turn it over to Dorothy too is that we are part of the Mississippi Food Justice Collaborative, which is a collaborative that is statewide, looking at all of our work that we do through the lens of food justice. And so we understand that as we're doing this work, that this can only be done in collaboration and from the ground up, and helping empower the people that have been doing this for generations before us, taking into consideration the history of agriculture in Mississippi and what that means for our work, and incorporating that into every decision that we make, every partnership that we make, every funding decision that we partner with is a part of this. A part of that was that when the pandemic hit last year, Dorothy had this brilliant idea to move our school garden program into the home. And so I will let her take it from here. Does that sound good, Dorothy?
It's fine. With the ending of Sonny's note, I will start there, but I might venture back later. But one thing that I could say good came out of the situation that we're in today, which is still in quarantining in some cases, but with the COVID being so close and personal to me, while I was lying in bed trying to survive from being diagnosed with COVID, I came up with the idea of us going with having our school gardens moved to where our children were, because the children were no longer in school. Then they were all home, being homeschooled. Let's take the gardens there. So we reached out to the Community Foundation. I talked with mine went blank, to Keach Foley, and we were able to secure funding from the Maddox Foundation to be able to put gardens around the state. We got a match from them, and we raised $80,000, and we ended up getting 80 from the Maddox Foundation to be able to fund up to 1,130 gardens statewide. And we brought gardens into those homes across the state. The most exciting part about that is that our children are learning where their food comes from, but our children now knows how to grow their food. They have been sending pictures. They've been showing the children in the garden, showing them harvesting some of their vegetables and fruits that they have been planting. We've even had some families that decided that they wanted to do some fruit trees because fruit costs so much. And when we talk about food as medicine, we look at the fact that if I look at our bodies as if they are a vehicle, a car, truck, whatever. If we don't maintain that vehicle accordingly, if we don't put gas in that vehicle, then it's not gonna, of course, run. And the same thing I would say with our fruits and our vegetables. If they're not part of our diet, then our bodies are not gonna be running appropriately. For an example, if a child is being diagnosed, shouldn't be at no reason, but it does happen, that they are anemic. It's not because mom and dad is anemic. It's not a hereditary thing, but a lot of people say, oh, my mama was anemic or my brother was anemic. That's fine, but it's mainly because the two of you or the family is eating the same thing. And then you go to the doctor and the doctor's gonna give you some iron supplements to take, to give you the iron that you need. But our iron is in our food that we eat, providing that we eat the appropriate foods to give us that iron. So, then they go out and take a pill to give you your iron bindings back into your bloodstream. That iron pill is now also has created another problem, So when we're taking iron, the main factor that comes from behind iron, you end up being constipated. So if you're eating your green leafy vegetables, you will not have that. You will not, I'm trying to remember how would I put that. You will not be interrupted with constipation because your green leafy vegetables are also high fiber, which will keep you regulated and that will stop those kind of problems. So when we do these gardens, we are encouraging our families to always consider things that are beneficial for the human body. We all want watermelons. We all want cantaloupes. We all want apples. They're all good for us, but in moderation because of the high sugar content. So when we're growing these things, we talk to our children about the benefits of fruits and vegetables. And we talked about a tomato and families that have heart diseases or any kind of heart conditions. I look at a tomato and I look at the heart, and if we cut a tomato in half, turn it the same way if we cut the heart in half. The tomato has 4 chambers, so does the heart. That's another clue to let you know that that tomato and your heart are buddies. The tomato helps with the circulatory system. So you look at that as being another way to help prevent taking certain medicines for your heart if you're eating enough of certain products that is supportive of whatever organ that is being disturbed. Another example, when you're talking about food as medicine, people with kidney disease, kidney disorders. If you look at a kidney bean, it has part of the name of the kidney. If you put it beside a kidney and you look at the 2 pictures, what do you see? What are your similarities? Yes, they both look alike. The same shapes are there. That bean also is a supportive food for our kidneys. These are things that I encourage families to grow when I talk to families who are having certain conditions and certain issues with their heart. Or if it's somebody who has issues with maintaining potassium, which also follows with the heart, we encourage them to grow more beans in their gardens. These are things you can grow in your garden. It only costs you a little bit of labor, a little bit of time and effort out there to do that. And the benefits of it when it's off season is stored and saved in your freezers or is being canned on the shelf. So it's a lot that goes along with our home gardens for our school-age children. So we take this work, and as we work with our children, we talk to them about the nutritional value of the food. And as Sonny talked about earlier, with the food being transported from wherever, thousands of miles away to get to us, and even out of the United States to get to us. Mississippi has the most fertile soil, probably than any other state, but we got more farmland available to us. But we import more food into our communities than we are growing in our communities. So that's something that we're trying to help work to change that by getting the farmers to grow in the school districts to purchase some of these products from the farmers will be another encouraging way for our farmers to keep growing whatever they are growing to sell to our schools. So that's how we're trying to take what we're growing and what we're pushing in our school district so that we can use these foods as our medicine. That's it.
All right. Thank you so much. So much information in such little time. I don't know if everyone saw the chat, the message that's in the chat, but just make sure you save your questions for the end of the presentations. We're going to have a Q&A session. We're just going to go right into our next presentation from Dr. Miles. So Dr. Miles, you can go forward with your presentation. And I think you're on mute. Oh,
I got it. Thank you, Terrence. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much, Dorothy, and thank you, Sunny, for that wonderful presentation. And Terrence and everyone. Ms. Wu, thank you all for having me. Dr. Green for having me on the panel this afternoon. Again, I'm Dr. Elizabeth Miles. I bring you greetings from Alcorn State University, the School of Agriculture and Applied Sciences, where I am in the Mississippi Small Farm and Agribusiness Center at Alcorn State University, and we are a part of the extension program. And I thought it was fitting for this summit, Terrence, the Delta Direction Consortium, Food is Medicine. Hippocrates say, let food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food. So I'm going to start there. I'm going to kind of give you a little bit about me, because I have 15 minutes. I kind of broke it down a little bit about me. The things that I'm doing at Alcorn State University, working with small limited resource farmers in Mississippi, and some of the things we're doing as relates to food to different markets. And then I'm going to talk about farmers markets and talk about buy fresh, buy local, okay? Again, I'm Dr. Elizabeth Miles. I'm from Patterson, Mississippi, actually, about 20 miles from Alcorn State University. That's in the southwest part of the state, Claiborne County. Born and raised there on a small farm. This is my father here in the middle. He passed away in 2012. He was the lifeline of our family, and he left us a family farm for us. We do have a cow and calf operation right now, but we're transitioning into fruits and vegetables and get some hoop houses. That's our old family house at the top right. My mother is sitting there on the garret, as they call it. That's where I grew up at. I love the outside. I'm just an outdoor person and love farming. And then I went from there, attended school at Jackson State University when I finished Port Gibson High School in 91, went to Jackson State University in 91, and then finished there in 96 with my bachelor's in business from Jackson State. And then Alcorn State hired me right after that. So it was a kind of rivalry coming from Jackson State to Alcorn. But anyway, I started working at Alcorn back in 1998, and I've been there since then. Got my master's from Alcorn State University in guidance counseling, then went back and got another master's in agriculture economics, and then I got my PhD from Jackson State in 2016 in higher education leadership. So from the farm to education to agriculture, I love it. I've been doing it now over 2 decades, been at Alcorn now 22 years, looking to retire at 25 years, okay? And I just love what I do. Okay, the Mississippi Small Farm Agribusiness Center, we was founded in 1988 by an act of Mississippi state legislation back in 1988. We work with small farms again all over Mississippi. We cover the entire state. It's about 4 of us on staff inside the center. But again, we are a part of the extension program at Alcorn State University, where we have specialists and other colleagues that I work with to help us move our programs forward. We look at the small farmers in Mississippi, talk to them about business development, different markets that they can get inside of, and then talk about farm financial management. We talk about all those different areas to move our farmers forward. Okay, the next slide here. Let me kind of move this up here. Okay, again, we do talk about post-harvest handling. I'll talk about that a little bit, how we work with farmers with value-added production. When I get down into my presentation, you'll see how they kind of tie in. And we do, if you have a group of co-op members or a group of farmers in the state, and you want us to come out to provide training, due to COVID-19, we're doing some traveling now, and limited travel, but we can schedule Zoom meetings. We can schedule activities for you via Zoom, where we can present to you about our different programs. So farmers, co-op members, youth development, you name it, you needed us to present on the different topics, then reach out to us. We can definitely provide that service to you. Okay. We do, again, work at co-ops in the state. This is in North Mississippi, where we work with Ms. Carolyn Jones. You all may know her with the Mississippi Minority Farmers Alliance group there. We have several workshops there in Okolona, Mississippi. That's Ms. Carolyn Jones right there in the middle, and her husband, Chris, and my son, Kobe, and Mr. John Jones. We was there for a workshop. We go there 3 or 4 times a year prior to COVID, but we've been having a lot of Zoom meetings as well. So we do a lot of outreach, again, services throughout the state of Mississippi. Okay, I did a little research here, and the number has grown since then, since we're talking about food today. Local food sales in the United States grew from 5 billion to 12 billion between 2008 and 2014. And just doing my research with Packaged Facts. And just looking at research last night, it has moved now up to close to 20 billion. This same study, it had already predicted that in 2019, that the food sales would jump up to about $20 billion. So it's about 25 billion now just on local food sales. Access to local food. I heard Sonny talk about the food being brought in on trucks and things like that. There's a local food movement. A lot of farmers, a lot of consumers want to know where their food come from. You want to have access to local foods. So much going on now. We saw on the news with the different hacking of the meat systems and things of that nature. I prefer to buy things from the local farmer now, and then consumers are also willing to pay more if they're buying it from the local farmer. And let's talk about Buy Fresh, Buy Local. We just talked about that. It's less food miles. If you go into a local farmer's market or working with local farmers, it's less food miles. It's freshly picked. They normally pick it that same morning. It's no long distance shipping on the truck for hours and hours and weeks and weeks and weeks. No chemicals to stimulate the ripening process, like with the tomatoes, they may put something on it, chemicals to stimulate it. But with the local farmer, you're going to pick it or harvest it that morning from their field and move it to a local farmer's market, maybe 20 miles from their home. It's so fresh. And you can purchase it from a local farmer at a local farmer's market. I also talked about the Buy Fresh, Buy Local movement. It provides consumers with more opportunities to eat delicious, fresh, and local food. Those the key words is local, 3 words, local, it's fresh, and it's delicious. I prefer all 3 of those. And also the community can benefit from local farmers as they purchase their goods from local merchants. Think about it. Local farming and local community, they have to go to the co-op to buy their seeds and feeds or gasoline or any type of equipment. And so they're keeping the money inside the local community. So it's a win-win situation for the local community and for the local farmer and for the local consumer. Talking about the Buy Fresh, Buy Local, you can purchase directly from a farmer, and think about it, you're contributing to the farmer's financial success. And what you're doing is taking out of the middleman. So you go to the farmer's market, you go to that vendor, he's a local farmer, you purchase directly from him. So it's an exchange between you and that local farmer at the farmer's market. There's no middleman involved at all, okay? You can also build a lasting relationship with local farmers too at the farmer's market. You can find out about their family, their 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th generation farmer. You can find out what type of products that you want that farmer to grow for you. And that farmer can develop a database of the contact information of all of their consumers that they come by and purchase from them. And that's been a lasting relationship with that local farmer. And also it provides local jobs to enhance the local economy. And again, this is a win-win situation. And I just put up a couple of the logos here for the Buy Fresh, Buy Local movement. Alabama have a logo there. Virginia, Mississippi now, we have one there, the Mississippi Department of Ag and Commerce. And you got North Central Florida Buy Local programs. So there are a lot of Buy Local, Buy Fresh programs across the US. You have Georgia Grown. And then this is just basically a marketing publicity for various states promoting the Buy Fresh, Buy Local movement. And talking about farmers market, let's look at this map here that's from the USDA Agricultural Marketing Services. If you look at the bottom left of the map, in 1994, you had over 1,700 farmers markets, but you can see an extensive increase from 1994 all the way up to 2019, where has been a tremendous increase in local farmers markets from 1,700 all the way up to over 8,700 farmers markets now. And that was as of 2019. So there has been a increase in farmers markets over the year because they want to buy local fresh, local products from the local farmer and knowing where their food come from. And at the farmers market, you can get fruits and vegetables, meats, canned goods, baked goods, nurseries, products, and more. Now, I looked at the Mississippi Department of Ag and Commerce. Mississippi have decreased in farmers markets. About 3 years ago, we had over 80 to 90 farmers markets. Now, as I looked on the computer just yesterday, it's down about 50 some odd farmers markets. So I'm thinking with the COVID-19 pandemic, that had a lot to do with the farmers markets beginning to decrease. But do visit your local farmers markets. Make sure you give business to the local farmer so the money can stay in the local communities. Now I'm going to kind of move on to some of the things that Alcorn State University have been doing with local farmers and moving products into local areas throughout the state of Mississippi. We do work with the co-op called Winston County Self-Help. A lot of y'all may know the Frank Taylor. He's a mover and a shaker in the state. And we was able to work with their co-op a year or so ago to help them move shiitake mushrooms into the local restaurants. So food is medicine. We have restaurants all over the state of Mississippi. We was able to help this farmer move product to the central station there in Starkville, not too far from Mississippi State. And if you look here, I was able to meet with Mr. Allie McReynolds. He's with the Winston County Self-Help on the right side of me from my side. And then in the middle, we have the Chef Leon Jefferson, and also the manager, Terry Long. Long story short, this farmer was able to move some of his shiitake mushrooms to the local restaurant there in Starkville, Mississippi. And we bought some boxes. There was a box there full of mushrooms. The chef took a look at them. They saw they was really, really nice. He even had a chance to taste them out and test them out. Long story short, they was able to move product to that local restaurant during the season. We left there and went down to the Veranda restaurant there in Starkville. We visited 3 restaurants in the same day, where the local farmer, again, was able to move his products not only to the Central Grill Station, he was able to move product also to the Veranda restaurant to provide food as medicine for the local restaurant, the local chefs, and for the local consumer. And the next restaurant that we visited was Restaurant Tyler. Those are all, again, in the Starkville, Mississippi area. So he was able to move product every Thursday. He had to deliver every Thursday to all 3 of the restaurants, maybe about 30 to 40 pints. You see the little things right there, the little clamshells, deliver those each store. So he made great money off of doing that, moving his product to the local restaurants. And I've been doing marketing about 15, 20 years. So marketing is one of my trades that I've been doing for a long time, providing healthy, fresh food from farmers to the local markets to the consumer. Okay, this is Mr. Price and that's Mr. What is his name? Right? One of our local farmers there, I can't think of his name, forgive me. It'll come to Mr. Gregory, Mr. James Gregory. He would not like me if he knew I forgot his name. Please don't tell him, please don't tell him. Okay, Mr. Gregory, one of our great farmers there in Flowood, Mississippi, in the Florence, Mississippi area. He moves local fresh product to local grocery stores there in his community. Those are some yellow squash there. He delivered to the local grocery store there to Mr. Gregory Price. He moved those on a weekly basis. And I was able to accompany him to the store. And it's all about building a relationship. Mr. Gregory built a relationship with Mr. Price. He had a good quality product. He was consistent with it, delivered on a weekly basis, and they built a relationship. I stepped out the way. So he's continued to move product to the local grocery store and then other grocery stores in the area. He kept the same concept from one store to the next store. Now he's in Piggly Wiggly. Now he's in Ramey's. He's in different stores in his area, moving local, freshly grown products to the stores, okay? And next, also up in the Holly Springs area, we have the Mid-South Progressive Agriculture Group there, a fine group of co-op members there in the Holly Springs area. And we have Miss Samantha Green and her family. They have Lily's Gourmet Bakery, where they move their products to the local Kroger stores there in Memphis, Tennessee. We was able to help them put together a business plan along with the Mississippi Association of Cooperatives, MAC office, help them put together a nice business plan to start moving their products to the Kroger stores. And they also are gluten free products that they're moving to the Kroger stores. Not only do they sell to grocery stores, they work with the local farmers markets there. You can see right here, farmers markets they work with. They also work with Whole Foods. And lately they are on Amazon. I talked to Samantha about 2 months ago. She was on my Market with Miles radio show, and she said they're actually moving product now into Amazon. So you can look them up, lilesgourmet.com, and the phone number is 901-230-5048. And they move wonderful, delicious muffins. And it's a family-owned business that they have there in the Memphis, Tennessee area, Holly Springs area, in the north part of the state. And last but not least, food is medicine. Grocery stores, talking about that again. Alcorn State University is blessed to have a USDA certified facility there in Quitman County, Marks, Mississippi, where Mr. Percy Baldwin is the manager there at the facility. And they have local farmers, about 30 to 40 local farmers, maybe have between 1 acre to 10, 15 acres. They produce peas, purple hull peas, and they collage and put those together like a cooperative model. And they move these purple hull peas. They come into 50-pound mesh sacks. A person get them in, shell them, and he put them into the clamshells, and they put them into the RPCs, and the local Kroger store come by and pick them up on a weekly basis. So that's another one of our programs we work with at Alcorn State University is our Purple Hull Pea Project. You may hear about that. So it goes from the local farmer to the local process facility there in Marks, then goes to Impala Produce is one of the buyers, and Kroger. So food is medicine in the local grocery stores. So that's all I pretty much had today. I want to kind of tell you the things we're doing at Alcorn State University. If you need any technical assistance, we'd be happy to provide that. And that's my contact information right here. My phone number is here, and my email address is here. You also can find me on Facebook under Dr. Elizabeth B. Miles, and I'm also on, I think, Instagram right now, and I think that's about it. But you can always reach me at 601-877-3947 or email me at emiles@alcorn.edu. Again, let food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food. Okay, that's all I have today, Terrence. Thank you all so much for the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, and I love the how you started and finished with the quote, and it's great to hear just the things you're doing so close to my hometown in Natchez. So it gives me hope that we can move more fresh foods down the river and up the river and throughout the state.
Absolutely.
All right, so we have one more presentation. Attorney Julian Miles. I said Julian Miles. Julian Miller. I said that when we started the summit. But Attorney Julian Miller, he is going to conclude the summit with his presentation. So, Attorney Miller, you can go ahead.
Thank you. You can share if you can share your screen. I have a little PowerPoint here, and I'm terrible at PowerPoint, but
you should be able to share your screen.
Hold on. Let me make sure. Okay, hold on. Yes, I can. Okay.
Okay.
That I certainly can. All righty. Hold on. Let me see. Okay. Can y'all see? And my apologies, I'm technical difficulties. This thing is moving slow.
Okay. Just put it in PowerPoint mode, Julian. Okay. You ready?
There we go. All right.
There you go.
We're ready. Wonderful. Okay, I'm here. Thank you. All right. I'm Attorney Julian D. Miller. First of all, it's great, to be here. It's an honor to be here. I really appreciate it. I love talking about food system work, and I'm a lawyer by trade, but that's sort of my passion is doing work around food systems and economic justice. I'm Attorney Julian Miller. I wear a lot of hats, but I'm sort of here. I'm in my capacity here as the founding director of the Reuben B. Anderson Center for Justice. And part of our work, particularly with our economic justice work, we're focusing on development of food systems. And so we have a partnership with Tougaloo College where I serve on the faculty. And in that capacity, we would develop a project called Tougaloo Agri-Growth Initiative, which the goal is to develop a sustainable food system on Tougaloo's campus to serve both the campus of Tougaloo College as well as the greater Jackson and Hinds County community. Be that as it may, what I'm going to focus on for my presentation is I've had the pleasure of being involved in food justice work for over a decade now, for 13 years. Oh my goodness, 13 years. where I've had the pleasure of first working with Dorothy Grady Scarborough, who was my mentor in this work and who had already, pioneered developing the food system in the Delta. She's from Shelby, I'm from Winstonville, so we're like literally 2 miles apart. And so I'm going to sort of talk about the evolution of that work with, developing the food system work in the Delta and through our, which culminated in our founding of Delta Fresh Foods Initiative. And John Green, Dr. John Green was a huge part of that during the time he was at Delta State University. And so we'll talk about that and then talk about how we sort of parlayed that work into the food system work at Tougaloo College in the Greater Jackson area through the Anderson Center, and then talk about the specific project that we are trying to implement in doing in as far as food as medicine is concerned as part of our public health equity work with the center. And of course, then we'll take questions. And so, I'm from the Mississippi Delta region. I was born and raised in Clarksdale, Mississippi. I was born in Clarksdale, Mississippi, and raised in Winstonville, Mississippi, in Bolivar County. And so, of course, as we know, the Mississippi Delta is the second most, if I'm correct, it's the second most impoverished region in the United States behind Appalachia. And when I first started doing anti-poverty work after college in the Delta, we talked about this correlation between health and wealth, right? That you can measure someone's health outcomes based upon, their income and their wealth. And so the idea with the Delta is, in order for the health out, I'm going to I'm going to paraphrase this. In order for the health outcomes of the Delta region to finally be in parity with the health outcomes of the United States, it would take this sort of exponential increase in wealth, I think to like 1,400%, if I am sort of quoting that correctly. But when I started this work and sort of understand the correlation between health and wealth, the idea was, how do we begin to both address, how do we begin to sort of create wealth in the Delta that's cooperative, that alleviates poverty, that in which people, the poorest people in the region essentially can get the benefit of the wealth that their collective labor creates, in the same time being able to, through creating that wealth, be able to address significant social problems, which include health disparities. So when I first started this work in 2008, working with Ms. Dorothy, working with Dr. John Green, and trying to think about that, it was obvious. They had already started this work around the development of a sustainable food system, because it both gave the opportunity both to create that wealth and, of course, address health disparities in the Delta through preventative health and increasing the proliferation of locally grown fresh food, which is much healthier in content, and which can be used to deal with chronic diseases, in which the Delta, we're the worst off in the country. We have health outcomes, of course, comparable to third world countries. So in starting this work, and again, Dr. Miles, thank you for that amazing presentation. One of the things at the time, one of the statistics at the time when we started this work around food systems in the Delta alone, just in the Delta region in itself, I think the total amount spent on food was like about $1.4 billion, and local growers were capturing 0.004% of that market. So the idea was, and we had the richest soil in the world. So again, 99.9% of our food is imported, and that's about the same in Mississippi. Mississippi, I think, is about 90% of our food is imported. I think it's a $6 billion market. 90% of it is imported. And so just the ability, to capture more of that market could create wealth for the Delta, of course, which could be used to address social problems. So we started that work with the founding of the organization, the Delta Fresh Foods Initiative. It began with a conference that was sponsored, that took place at Delta State University, I think in February of 2010, which brought together 125 stakeholders across the Delta, farmers, health advocates, community developers, you name it. It brought us together at a stakeholder meeting. It was sponsored by Why Hunger, which is a national organization at the time. And so we came together. And so the idea was discussing how do we, because we had again, with research Dr. Green had done at that time, with the pioneering work that Ms. Dorothy had done around green agriculture, which began in the 90s, again, as Sonny would say, when it wasn't cool. They formed a coalition of farmers through Mississippi Engaged in Agriculture, led by Ms. Dorothy, that already were engaging in experimenting with green infrastructure around farming and ways in which to have high production on small plots of land. We had all this momentum. You had health advocates. The Cleveland Farmers Market was established at the time in the Delta, and we had all this work and momentum, but it was very siloed and segmented. So the idea was, how do we develop a sustainable food system in the Delta, an economically stable food system that could centralize the local food market and begin capturing more and more and more and more of that $1.4 billion for local growers and for workers, low income and middle income workers in the Delta, to actually create real sustainable living wage employment and create revenue that can be put together to address social problems. So we came together, stakeholders, and what was born out of that was Delta Fresh Food Initiative. Myself, Ms. Dorothy, Dr. Deborah Moore were founding board directors, and I know Judy Ballou was the executive director. And so we formed Delta Fresh Foods, and with the goal of developing a sustainable food system in the Delta. So what it essentially started was, over that time, we had about over 30 to 40 community food system projects throughout the Delta that we did. We built gardens in schools, in community, in part of churches. We established, began pioneering the work around farm to school, working with, at that time, it was about 5 school districts in the Delta we worked with to get GAP certification so they could purchase from local growers to provide food. We did marketing, we did, health access, the whole 9, you name it. And so finally in around 2016, we did a we had a strategic planning meeting. We thought, well, while we had this momentum, we've done a lot of project work. The issue was sustainability. It was hard to sort of rally communities around those projects that were done in the Delta in order to make those food systems sustainable. So we decided that we would restructure and we would go bare bones and basically focus on food system development. We'll take community by community and work with the community, bring in stakeholders, build the infrastructure for local fresh foods, build the market, partner to develop the market and help sustain and scale that market, work with the private support to scale the market. So of course we started in Bolivar County, where we had built our most infrastructure we built in Bolivar County. Of course, Ms. Dorothy was a huge part of that because she already was in Shelby. Her farm infrastructure was in Shelby, and so we had, in addition to church gardens we developed around there, we had also gotten a previous grant to increase our infrastructure in Shelby and Mount Bayou and Winstonville, where I'm from. So naturally, we thought that place to definitely get started with developing this food system model was in Shelby. So it became our North Bolivar County Good Food Revolution project. So we started out with, we worked with a group of about 23 young people, ages 15 to 23, I think, 15 through 24. They first did a survey of over 200 households in the Mount Bayou, Winstonville, Shelby communities in North Bolivar. From that survey, they served 83% of the local citizens would support a mobile farmers market if it was provided. So based upon that feedback, we established a local farmers market, a mobile market in the Mount Bayou, Shelby, and Winstonville communities that went each week beginning in the summer to, I think it began the summer in June and we went till November, serving selling locally grown fresh produce to local individuals. And so we had a partnership with 6 local growers in Bolivar County, which also included Dr. Biles, the Agriculture Extension Service that was in Mount Bayou, and John Coleman, who worked with us. And actually, they ended up providing most of the produce to supply the market. And so we did that and continue to do this part of the Good Food Revolution project. Then we realized in order to make the project sustainable, because a lot of our growers were, also obviously they sold to other markets to make profit. We developed our own youth farm. We developed our own youth farm. Oh, sorry, I went too far ahead. We developed our own youth-led farm, which is about 5 acres of land in Mount Bayou. That was youth-led, and that had both the high tunnel production mainly. And so in order to continue to only sustain our mobile market, but we also ended up getting connected with, we have got a hotel as one of our was one of our markets that we work with, and also we have a woman, she makes like these preserves and different things that actually we supply and support. And so we hope to continue to build and kind of scale the Delta work in that regard for that particular community. So that was Delta Works. And Delta Work is pretty much, you know, in the process where it's to be scaled. And then once we sort of get that more, getting that sustainable in that community, we plan to kind of continue to other communities of Delta. Probably the next group will probably be Quitman County, because, you know, they have the processing center, and there's sort of, and we've done some work in there as well. So that was Delta Works. So when we founded the Anderson Center, the idea of it was, of course, you know, if this ain't broke, don't fix it. So the idea was, for our economic justice work, you know, let's keep it simple. That, you know, we want to continue to build upon the food system model and continue to expand. We want it to be something statewide. And so we thought we had a pretty good idea of how this works from the Delta Works. So it was like, okay, we're coming here to Tougaloo College. Tougaloo is one of our central partners. One of the main reasons was because Reuben Anderson, who's the namesake of the organization. Of course, Terrence is a distinguished alumnus of Tougaloo College. Reuben Anderson was an alumnus of Tougaloo College. He was the first African-American graduate of Ole Miss Law, Circuit Court Judge, County Court Judge, Supreme Court Justice, and President of Mississippi Bar. And was a distinguished civil rights litigator who pretty much literally integrated every school district, state of Mississippi in the late 60s, 70s. And so Tougaloo, of course, is, you know, he loves it, you know, next to his family, his God family, Tougaloo. And so obviously we were going to make it as our centerpiece of this partnership. And so for economic justice work, ideally the thought was, well, let's develop a sustainable food system on campus. And unbeknownst to us, Noel Didlow, who is one of the co-chairs of the Mississippi Food Policy Council, part of the Food Justice Collaborative, had already done some work around that before she left, and we connected, and now we had an opportunity to connect again through our work with Food Policy Council. But so the idea of it was, let's build a food system on campus. So we found out that Tougaloo had actually did this area you're seeing now is behind the Kinchlow Science Building. This was in 2019. That's Miss Dorothy, who's our district farming consultant. It's all the same people. We all the same people. We all do the same thing. So again, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So when we started behind Kinchlow, they had actually they previously had a community garden before that. Of course, like a lot of Happy Garden projects, were not, was not kept, was not maintained. And they had they also had a grant too. Previously, they did a Farm Aid grant of I forgot 2501. It's the USDA Farm Aid. But was it 2501, Dr. Miles?
Yeah, 2501. Yeah.
We just had the 2501 Farm Aid grant previously, and so they had been work done. So but again, had not been sustained. So the idea was this was us back in 2019 of planning, of trying to build infrastructure to start the infrastructure piece for this garden project. So we started, and the first phase, we developed the community garden, that Kinchlow space. We built, thanks to Ms. Dorothy, work with Ms. Dorothy, we built multiple raised beds that we had built and developed as the first phase of the project last year during COVID. Had a little problem with deer. So we had some problems with the deer. So we ended up having to besides spraying pheromone, we ended up having to build some netting over the first phase. So we got it like a winter crop that we actually did part of about a distribution that was part of a food distribution drive that we did in Jackson at the end of the year last year, and for in March, after the second food distribution March. So for the second phase of production for this Tougaloo Agri-Growth Initiative garden, we developed high tunnel production. High tunnel production, which is, and let me tell you now, again, my project director for the Tougaloo Agri-Growth Initiative, Roderick Woods, who's a part of the Food Justice Collaborative and is a distinguished Tougaloo alumnus himself. He oversees it. So apparently we planted squash, zucchini, tomatoes, cucumbers, peppers, and bell peppers. And so we completed the spring production we completed production for the high tunnel. It's growing beautifully. We plan to harvest, I think in the next 2 to 3 weeks, we plan to harvest. And so what we're going to do is we're going to have to build fencing around that Kinchlow garden, because we get our deer problem. That these deer, we made a deer buffet. And so we're going to do the fencing around and complete the summer production for the Kinchlow garden, which will also include an additional high tunnel. So the plan for it is, and Noel Didlow is where Otis Wright is working with us, who's a distinguished Alcorn alumnus, who's our farming consultant, who's working with us on production. And also Noel is working with us on the marketing piece. And so, and of course, Dr. Miles, I'll be reaching out to you shortly. What we're looking to do is, in the short term for our distribution, we're looking at the local farmers market in Jackson, as well as we have a partnership with a local restaurant, literally called The Village, which is like literally right down the road from Tougaloo College. The founders of it were Tougaloo alumni who were good friends with Broderick, went to school with Broderick, so they've already committed to purchasing produces. So, but long-term, we're developing a strategy to make the Tougaloo food system interdependent food system. So the idea is we're producing for that to be fed to the students as part of through the cafeteria. And again, want to open up to the broader Jackson community. So I want to scale in that way, serve the campus, both create jobs for students on campus, as well as feed the campus, but also begin to scale to where we can provide to the local community, surrounding community, if through a mobile market, or just through building relationships with local grocers throughout. So that's kind of the food system work with Tougaloo Growth Initiative in a nutshell. And we're sort of continuing to build upon that. We sort of work with partners on that. And like I said, the goal of this is to also develop this into a worker-owned cooperative for the workers, because we have both adult workers as well as student workers who are part of this project, and we want them to be able to own the means of production for them. So that work is kind of creates the foundation for our public health equity work. And this is hopefully our production will be, this is the dream, this is the goal. Of course, there are no mountains in Mississippi, but this is just kind of the goal. You kind of get the picture. What we hope to do as far as our production side of our work to be able to sustain, because Tougaloo has 500 acres of land. And so we don't have a problem with getting space and making work, but we hope to have production where it's sustainable, where it can be like, and I don't know if you all know the story about Paul Quinn College in Dallas, Texas. It was an HBCU, a small HBCU, much like Tougaloo, that literally was about to go bankrupt. Enrollment declined, and so they literally about to be dissolved. And so they had their president they brought in. They went through 5 presidents, a president each year. Their 5th president was a lawyer, who came in. And one of the first things he did was he shut down the football program, because as he said, nobody's going to the NFL and the football program is trash. He shut down the football program and used the stadium area to build a farm. Built a farm on campus. They ended up supplying the Dallas Cowboys Stadium, and they were so sustainable to the point that they got $20 million in new investment, new buildings. Their enrollment increased to 1,000 students. It literally transformed the campus, and literally. And so we're taking that same model for Tougaloo with the food system that we're trying to develop there. But anyways, quickly switching gears, I don't have much time. So as far as our food is medicine piece, that's our economic justice work for Tougaloo Growth Initiative. So for our public health equity piece, again, we thought if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Why reinvent the wheel? So let's just kind of build off our momentum. So what we want to do for our food is medicine piece is we want to use the access to locally grown fresh foods. Of course, it's a preventative health measure to address infant mortality. Tougaloo also has, as part of its Owens Health and Wellness Center, has a project called Delta Health Partners, which basically is funded through a federal grant. It essentially works in 7 counties in the Delta to do work around infant mortality. And they do that. They work with low-income mothers aged 12 to 20. And they do what's called, they have nurses and social workers that do home visits to the mothers to help them while they're pregnant, in order to help them put in place strategies to make sure that they have a healthy pregnancy. Make sure they attend doctor's appointments, just strategies on how to take care of their baby when they come out. So again, the Mississippi Delta has rates of infant mortality that are comparable to third world countries, and has the highest rate of mortality in the country. So there's been a project in St. Louis, Missouri, that focuses on providing prescription drugs providing prescriptions for access to local fresh foods for low-income mothers to address infant mortality. And so we're trying to replicate that project here through our partnership with Delta Health Partners at Tougaloo. Because if you don't know, the costs just in low birth weight and issues with illnesses for children through birth costs the state about, costs Medicaid roughly $241 million, if I'm correct in the statistic, because about half of the low birth weight infant deaths, those things are covered by Medicaid, because those mothers are eligible for Medicaid. So the idea of it is to be able to address those chronic illnesses through providing access to fresh food would go a long way to saving dollars to Medicaid, for addressing those health disparities, but also saving dollars to Medicaid. So the idea is we would partner, Delta Health Partners would partner with Tubular Growth Initiative to provide access to fresh fruits and vegetables to their patients as part of like a mobile health clinic, because a part of the program, they want to develop a mobile health clinic with DHP for addressing their overall, giving them access to overall preventative health measures and make sure they make the doctor's appointments, things of that nature. So the idea of it is the doctor, the way the program works is the doctor would provide a prescription for them, for these low-income mothers to receive locally grown fresh produce, of course, through the Tubular Agri-Growth Initiative farm primarily, but we'd also partner with other growers. And of course, we would measure their health outcomes, as far as, the improved health and whatnot. And so ideally what we would like to do is we would like to get to a point where Medicaid dollars can be used to support these growers, and it would pay for that produce to be provided to these low-income mothers. And so there's been, like I said, there's a pilot project in our prescription RX project in St. Louis, Missouri, that we're trying to use to model and replicate. And so again, we, this food is medicine project would address food insecurity, but also address preventative health among these low-income mothers, with the idea of creating a stream of revenue to Medicaid to support support that financially, to be able to do that, address those poor health outcomes. And so that is, like I said, we started sort of laid the foundation for that work, and Terrence has been working with us on that. And so we're, like I said, moving on that. And we hope to, we also bring at Tubular, we brought in, we're in the process literally this month of hiring a new professor of public policy who will oversee our public policy program. As part of this partnership with Anderson, Tubular has the Anderson Institute for Social Justice. And under that umbrella will be a Eric Holder public policy program, where we will have a public policy professor practitioner who will work with us on all our projects, but particularly for this project for Food is Medicine. She will work with us to develop a policy paper to address that model, to break down that model of how Medicaid can fund this Food is Medicine program and fund prescriptions for parents, and there was something we want to take to the governor's office to be a part of the Medicaid program to be able to make policy recommendations for that and to actually get it implemented. So we are literally getting that professor in, and we'll start working on both the grassroots piece of that project, actually putting that project in place, and actually working on the policy piece as well, to take, to do a quantitative and qualitative study of that and to try to replicate that in policy recommendations. And that's all I have. That's it in a nutshell. Again, I'm sorry I went over my time, but I am a lawyer, so and you're one too, so you know how that is. We talk. So
Absolutely. I mean, it's when you have something to talk about that's worth talking about, you always need more time. So I want to thank all of you for providing these great presentations for everyone. I know we are running in at the end of our time, so we want to go ahead and jump into our Q&A session. We already have one in our chat box from Dr. John Green, and it's addressed to all the panelists, and I'll read it out to you if you don't see it. Dr. Green says, in previous Hunger Summit and Food is Medicine Summit sessions, questions have come up by program leaders on how to better recruit farmers and other growers to buy food for their programs. What recommendations would the panelists offer for recruiting growers to purchase food for their Food is Medicine initiatives? And you all can take a stab at it. You can take yourself off mute if you have a response to that question.
Okay, I think I would try to take a stab at that question there, working with small farmers over Mississippi and doing marketing. A lot of our farmers, I'm going to be honest, may not have the volume that's needed for these different markets, but some of them may have it. So that's been one of our biggest issues. And then coming up, maybe certification. Some have GHP, good handling practice, or GAP, good agriculture practices certification. So depending on what is actually needed for this particular program, local farmers are available. It's just finding the right ones and working with local farm cooperatives. Mississippi have about 12 or 13 co-ops in the state of Mississippi, and about 4 to 5 of them are actually functioning in a strategic manner. So I would start with local farmer cooperative groups. Of course, the extension program, I work at Alcorn State, you got Mississippi State, that's up in Mississippi State. Try to work with some of those farmers as well.
And just like I said, just to piggyback off Dr. Miles, and I think that just can we piggyback off her because she's the expert. I think it's a matter of being strategic. I think it's just you have to kind of, and that's one of the things I want to connect with her and others about figuring out, okay, what the market is and sort of what you're trying to do, what's the volume and who can kind of best fit it. And one of the things I had talked about that we want to do as part of this project is doing like a fresh foods exchange where you bring a group of growers together with a group of those, who are interested in purchasing, and kind of connecting us and figuring out almost like the healthcare exchanges, like figuring out how, like, what do you supply and can what I supply meet your needs, and kind of being strategic about that and kind of building from there, because it's not just an easy step process. It's really, you have to be strategic. You have to kind of, so everyone's figure that out. And so.
Yeah, and we hold regional meetings for what you're talking about, Julian, but for the school space, where we hold these regional meetings where we get farmers and food service directors in the same room together. This year it's been the Zoom room. And I think the only thing I'd add to that, is exactly right, is that it's a lot about building trust. So in the past, think about farming and how much, I have a farmer that I work with in North Mississippi who I asked once, I was like, and I don't see any irrigation here. How are you watering your crops? And he was like, talking about God. It's like, I'm dependent on the rain. I mean, you think about how high stakes farming is. How much you have to plan, how much you have to have access to resources. I mean, it's not like something where you can just, sometimes farmers have excess and you can be able to purchase that excess at the last minute, but a lot of this is about building trust and planning together. And we've had many farmers in the past in Mississippi who have been let down and deals have broken down at the last minute where a lot of the trust has gone away. So we encourage our schools that we work with, our early childcare programs and our K through 12 schools, to start talking, for the upcoming year about what they're going to want and start planning out contracts that far in advance so that the farmers can have time to prepare, to figure out how to scale, like Dr. Miles mentioned, and be able to make it work. But yeah, you got to build that trust up with the farmers for sure.
Dr. Rain, I do also find that our farmers are very eager to grow whatever is needed, but their biggest concern is, if I grow this product, where is my market? And when the markets are identified, and the growers will definitely, do the growing. They mainly want to grow. They don't want to be the market person as well. And also with the infrastructure not being what our farmers actually are needing, that's a lot of our downfall as far as farmers growing the product that we need. So being able to grow it, but then you got to also store it. When Dr. Myers was talking about the good agricultural practices and handling of the product, that end product is the biggest breakdown that I think our farmers have. And because they don't have places to store this product until it goes to market, those are still some of our missing pieces. So that's why we're not getting as much commitment as we can or should have, because of a lack of infrastructure for the farmers.
Thank you. And I actually have a question for you, Ms. Dorothy Grady Scarborough and Sonny. What is one or some of the biggest obstacles to getting these fresh foods into these schools in North Mississippi or throughout the state? And either it can take it.
When the question came across my mind, went in a couple of directions, but the biggest obstacle is being able to have the food in, how do you put it? They're not able to present the food the way in which the food service directors are equipped to handle it. You know, it's easy for me to go out and pull baskets and baskets of greens and box them and take them to a school. But that school is not going to be able to handle that product to put on the table. They don't have the adequate equipment to pick and wash. Of course, yes, we do have Alcorn State processing plant, but that's in the northern part of the state. We work across the state. So those are some of the issues that we've ran across, is being able to get that product ready for the schools to be able to, you know, manage it and get it out in time enough to prepare a meal. Staff is less than what it used to be when we did do manual peeling of onions and peeling of potatoes and washing of greens and cutting up carrots. Your staff was a lot more, you know, larger. So that's where we found a lot of our issues with the farm to school piece.
And we have really high turnover for food service directors in Mississippi. Like it's almost like heartbreaking sometimes how Dorothy and I will like be working with a school, they're doing farm to school, they're buying, and then that person's like, I'm retiring or I'm moving on. So Dorothy and I have been talking about this and been thinking a lot lately about that job in particular. And a lot of in Mississippi, the only requirement to be a child nutrition director is to have an undergraduate degree. And we have a lot of nutritionists in those roles. But this could be a great opportunity for a chef. You have this like set budget, you know, your customers are kids, but you can figure that out. But it's great hours compared to most chefs' jobs, which go late into the night. Especially if you have kids yourself, it can be great hours. It's actually not, you know, lunch ladies are not paid well, but the director is paid well. So I think that that's going to end up being a big challenge for us going forward, is getting really good people into those positions. And we are currently working with our school districts to design job descriptions that include the importance of these things to the district as they're establishing their farm to school programs, and that they're building this into the wellness policy that each district is required to have, so that they're building this into the job descriptions and they're getting people in these roles that want to do this and want to take this on.
Absolutely. I will say, when I was in public school, I would have benefited from having a chef in the kitchen. I will say that. Do we have any other questions from other participants? I know I have a question for Dr. Miles. During your presentation, you were showing different farmers and how they got their products into different markets. So I guess, like, for people that are listening in on this call and they might watch this summit later on, how can farmers or other companies come to Alcorn State University and work with you to get their products into these markets? What is the process for that?
Okay, absolutely, Terrence. Thank you. Very good question. First and foremost, they can contact me, of course, because they want to know where the available markets are in the state of Mississippi. Just for instance, working with Mr. Gregory, I took the initiative upon myself to travel with him to the local grocery store to meet with the produce manager. That's the key. If you want to go to grocery stores, you must meet with the produce manager. So I walked with him to the local grocery stores, and they introduce themselves to each other. And then I kind of like get out of the way. So I can connect you to the market for us, making sure you supply the market, have what they need on a consistent basis, have the quality there, have the quantity there. That's between the farmer and the buyer. So I kind of step out of the way. So that's one of the things I do, work with small farmers in Mississippi, is actually connect them to the marketplace. But prior to doing that, I've actually visited farms myself in the past. I've actually been to Mr. Gregory Farm there in Florence, Mississippi, to see the squash, the okra, the tomato, the watermelon, everything he's doing, so that I could be a mouthpiece as well. If the buyer called me back, well, Dr. Miles, how is Mr. Gregory, how's his farm? Have you visited the farm? What do we have? So before I even do that, if the farmer must be in production, actually have the product. Because one thing is about marketing, once you open that door up, you want to make sure you keep the door open. You don't want the door to close. So you open the door up, build a relationship. You want to consistently provide that market with what they're needing on a weekly basis or on a monthly basis. So they can contact me. I'll be happy to do what I can to connect them to the marketplace, but I don't want to put my reputation on the line of them not having the product that's needed. So it kind of works both ways. You got to have the product. I mean, because I know Dorothy, Ms. Grady mentioned about the marketplace. And I always say this over my 15, 20 years of experience, the market is so huge. It's just not having enough to meet the demand. Now think about all the grocery stores in the world, restaurants in the world, local schools in the world. They can't get enough. And the question is, where are the farmers? Where are the local farmers? So that's what I ran into. I opened up all these markets when I was at Alcorn, but we weren't able to supply them all because we didn't have the enough quantity to meet the demand. We did what we could. And one of the examples is working with Walmart. I'm going to be honest, Alcorn had a contract, not Alcorn, the local farmers through the processing facility had a contract with Walmart. Of course, Walmart is a huge giant, and they're knocking out the mom and pop stores, but we weren't able to meet that demand for Walmart. They wanted 500, 600 cases of squash on a weekly basis. That type of demand on our farmers was overwhelming. But I can say what's promising. Local farmers in the local community through CSAs, community supported agricultural, local farmers markets, beating the bushes, getting that done, our farmers can be very, very, very successful and don't bite off too much too soon. So meet the farmer where they are, see what kind of quantity that they have, and then that way I know what kind of market to open them up to. You got to crawl before you walk. So start small and grow big as you can. My dad would always say that, start small as you can and grow big as you can. So I would be happy to help out, or any extension agents that do this type of work. I'll be happy to help out Terrence.
Absolutely.
Can I add a little thing?
Yeah, go ahead.
Dr. Miles just reminded me too about something that I often feel like I'm a broken record about, but our food system is working exactly the way it was designed to benefit the biggest growers with the largest amounts of land. So Mississippi is an ag state. Our #1 export is agriculture. But the people that are making money off of agriculture in Mississippi are a very small group of white people. And that is because the system has been designed to benefit them. Commodity dollars from the USDA make up one of the largest chunks of the Farm Bill. And that's going towards people that are growing commodity crops in Mississippi, which are not edible: cotton, soy, corn. So those are the farmers that have the support and the resources and have historically had the support and the resources. The farmers that Dr. Miles is talking about, these are like people that have, just lived and gotten, like they've done it with the support of their communities and the support of, their ancestors that were able to get land and just, have gone just a much harder route than I would say most of the farmland you see as you drive throughout Mississippi. So Alcorn and the things that we're talking about, I mean, this is hard work at systems change work that ultimately, to get these things that we know will be best for our people, for our children, for our farmers, and for our economy, we're going to have to see a major change in the food system in Mississippi, including in large part economic disruption and a redistribution of resources.
Yeah, and I think that's the $10 to $20 billion question is how do you redistribute that money from the Farm Bill to the farmers that can actually help people in the state? And actually, that's a good segue into the question I have for Attorney Miller. With the program that you were talking about with combating infant mortality, I know I've worked with you on this project, and I just wanted others to hear about the group's plan on how to use these foods and how to get them into these families, and how is it going to be used to combat infant mortality in a holistic view?
Certainly. Basically, I mean, and sort of piggybacking on the point about, that's a policy issue, right? As far as the distribution of the Farm Bill, and that goes back to, at the end of the day, everything we're doing. We form this Food Justice Collaborative. We're doing this work, thinking about the idea, the importance of collective organizing around this issue, to continue to scale this market at the grassroots level, but at the same time, organizing around the fact that the USDA, that resource distributor should focus on local growers and local communities, and fruit and vegetable production instead of cash crops, and essentially because the USDA not only subsidizes an unhealthy, unequal food system in the United States, but it also subsidizes support, essentially causes basically put its boot on the neck of underdeveloped countries who could otherwise who have basic economies, agriculture, who could otherwise be tapping into these markets and actually creating a sustainable economy for themselves, but can't because but those resources have been concentrated to wealthy growers, but I digress. But the idea of it is particularly what's great about with the foods medicine piece and the way we're trying to approach and the way it seems to be, which seems to be approached in other areas, is the idea of it is it can create a stream of revenue through these Medicaid, through Medicaid, through government resources, and that can be a stream of revenue. The same with EBT. Another big issue too is EBT production. I didn't mention this in the presentation, and Ms. Dorothy's actually working on this project as part of the BGT Leadership Development Initiative. When we did Delta Fresh, we started the farmers market. We started in 2018 when we first started our farmers market, our mobile farmers market. We did fairly well as far as getting individual sales and getting individual buy-in. A big part of it of our marketing strategy was it was youth led, and so it was local communities. So word of mouth, people got how to support the kids, support the community. And so we did pretty well with getting individual markets. We may have total, don't quote me on these numbers, I think we may have total over the life of that mobile market since 2018, maybe had 3 or 4 EBT sales. And we had the certification and we had the machine, everything, 3 or 4. And so that EBT market is really, so that's another avenue. That's a huge another avenue, another stream of revenue. Medicaid is one thing. I mean, that's we have to first really sort of really make this food medicine project work and have some good numbers sort of to get the buy-in for Medicaid. But EBT, you would think EBT should be targeted toward local growers and locally grown fresh produce, you would think. But that is a huge market, a difficult market to tap. So one of the things we're trying to do as part of our work with Anderson Institute too, we have Minnie G. Thompson Leadership, as part of the Minnie G. Thompson Leadership Development Initiative. One of the things we're trying to do is we have a community economic development project that's focused on tapping in that EBT market and figuring out how to get people who have EBT to actually purchase from local growers and bring in local growers and actually because one of the things that's happened, one of the biggest trends this past year due to the pandemic has been food distribution. These huge food distribution drives to address food insecurity in the COVID crisis. So we want to take that and parlay that to say, okay, if you come get a box of this food and you're an EBT customer, just purchase, just spend a few dollars locally to get local fresh produce to go with that, and try to use that as a way to market to bring in EBT customers into purchasing locally grown fresh foods. And so both Medicaid through Foods Medicine as well as Target EBT, I think is going to be really, really important to sort of tapping in that revenue stream for local growers to as create a base to be able to then leverage that to think about, okay, the broader resources around USDA should be invested in developing these worker-owned cooperatives. Let me be clear about that, because we want to make sure the distribution of that work goes to the communities that they serve in. And so I think we, from both a grassroots standpoint, from a policy standpoint, I think we're moving in the right direction. I think it's just important that we sort of be able to organize our growers and our producers around sort of doing that in a consistent way and just trying to, as Dr. Miles said, taking it one step at a time and trying to get as much of that market piece by piece as much as possible.
Thank you so much. I know we're almost at the end, but do we have any other questions from other participants before we end today's session? Okay. So, as I said in the beginning, we did record this session, so we'll make it available to others at a later date. I want to thank all of you, all the panelists for taking the time out of their busy schedules on this Friday, on this beautiful Friday, to give us this great information. And then hopefully we'll see these programs spread throughout Mississippi, and we can reverse the import, and we can export more food to our local communities and to our schools in the near future. So with that being said, we'll cut this thing short, about 8 minutes short, and we'll let everyone enjoy their Fridays. Thank you everyone for coming out.
Thank you.
Thank you for inviting us.
Weekend. Thank you all so much.
Right.
Thank you.
Thanks, y'all. Appreciate it, Terrence.
No problem.
Soon.